Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. Ugh, I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new BuyAbility tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your BuyAbility, only on Zillow.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
All of the phones are out, and it will be a gold medal for the host nation.
He's up to silver medal. He's gone. And Great Britain have won the gold medal in the boulder and lead. Toby Roberts, the 19-year-old from Surrey, with 155 points, has won gold for Great Britain.
And the young man from Lewisham is going to take the gold medal here. It's going to be an individual gold medal for Alex Yee and Team GB. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, covering the games all the time rather than once every 4 years. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and in this historic week of the Olympic movement, we hear from two Olympic champions about the future of the Games.
Yes, we are delighted to be able to catch up with Ali and Jonny Brownlee, a pair that I know and love a bit. From Leeds to Rio, from London to Tokyo, and a little bit of Paris chat too.
We round up the latest headlines from the 144th IOC Session in Greece ahead of the vote for the new Olympic president.
Yes, this is an extra episode this week, and if you'd like to get in touch and see what we're all about, make sure you give us a follow across all the social media platforms. You can often get to your breaking Olympic and Paralympic news there. You can find us on all of the different social media sites. And don't forget, you can check us out. You can watch some of our stuff, listen to some of our stuff, read some of our opinions on our blogs, and find out what we do at our website, anythingbutfooty.com. So, as John said, the Olympics IOC session is dominating the agenda this week. So, what better time to speak to two Team GB legends, Ali and Jonny Brownlee. 3 Olympic gold medals, 5 Olympic medals between them. And Ali has been voted onto the IOC Athletes Commission as well. That election happening back in 2022. Much to get their thoughts on. So let's welcome them back to the podcast. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic sport podcast. Now, I don't like to use the words legends very much, but I will today because we're joined by a couple. I think they're legendary anyway, because my career is intertwined with their career somewhat over the past decade and a half. Jonathan Brownlee and Alistair Brownlee, two Olympic champions, joining us on the podcast. And the reason that they've joined us on the podcast is to talk about this brand new survey by NatWest that says a quarter of 18 to 35-year-olds have £500 or less saved. 60% of young people rely on gifts from family or bonuses from work to top up their savings, and 45% of young adults are not actively saving for retirement. And this is something that Jonny and Alistair are both passionate about. Alistair, I'll come to you first. I mean, some of these statistics are pretty alarming considering what young people have to save for in their futures.
They really are, aren't they? It really struck me that big one, the 25% of young people that don't have £500 of saving, is very alarming. And I think there's lots of reasons for that, and whether it's going up or down, it doesn't really matter. I think what we're here to talk about is draw the parallels between saving as part of NatWest's Couch to 5K cash challenge, and really draw the parallels between that and saving and what it's like training for sport. You've got to start slowly. You're not going to run a marathon tomorrow or save all the money you need for retirement tomorrow. So by starting slowly, one step at a time, being consistent over a long period of time, and also celebrating the little wins along the way, where you get, 5 or 10 years from now, whether that's saving or training for the Olympic Games, can surprise you.
And Jonathan, this couch to cash 5K challenge that Alistair's mentioned there, we're urging young people to set themselves some targets this year. And I guess as a sportsman, you will, as Alistair said, resonate with that, because you can't become an Olympic champion overnight. You have to set yourself some targets, whether that's in the swim, the bike, the run, or the bank account.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of similarities between our sporting careers and the things that we've learned along the way, and savings as well. So, yeah, setting goals is one of them, setting challenges. When you achieve those goals, celebrating that along the way. Again, that's probably something that we haven't done that well in our career, because you always quickly move on to the next one. Um, Stop thinking about it and actually start doing it is another one. And then sometimes making the initial first step is actually the hardest. So, whether it's the first amount of money to save, or it's going out for a run and going out the door for the first time. And also a big one that we've always talked about is consistency is key. So consistency in training, consistency of doing the same training week in, week out, and then the same in saving as well.
And I can't obviously speak to Jonny without asking what his long-term goal is. So you want the kids to save, but what's your long-term goal now, Jonny?
Yeah, good question. And I actually think it's an interesting part of my career for me now, in that I've had a very obvious goal throughout my whole career, the Olympic Games. So, since the age of, I guess, 20 in 2010, I thought about London, and obviously Rio and Tokyo, and then Paris. And I failed to make it in Paris. But my goal definitely is not the 2028 Olympic Games. I think my goal for the next couple of years is to enjoy my training, enjoy the racing again, do some challenges that I've not had a chance to do. So half Ironman challenges, do some super tri racing, which is if you think about 2020 cricket, it's basically a 2020 cricket version of triathlon. I guess more than anything, enjoy doing that, and go to training wanting to be the best, wanting to prove to myself more than anything that I can still do it, and I'm not past it just yet. But at the same time, go to training without that the kind of too much of the nerves and the pressure that I had. Going into Paris, it was very much like every single training session that I did was going to reflect the race day in Paris, or trying to get to Paris. So that takes its toll. Whereas now I can go training with a bit more of a relaxed attitude and go out there and enjoy it.
Jonny, how tough was it when you were told that Paris and the Olympic Games was not going to be something that you would be able to go to as part of Team GB after the success in Tokyo?
Really tough. I think, well, firstly, because the Olympic Games is incredible, and obviously it's something that's a massive part of my life. And although Paris was always going to be a bonus, it would have capped off my Olympic career perfectly. And then secondly, I genuinely believe that I could have done a really good job in that, in the individual, in whatever role as domestique for Alex. I think I could have done a great job. That's helping him out on the bike. And then in the mixed team relay, I still believe I had it in me to help the team get the gold medal. And in some ways, it's actually quite hard seeing them then not get that gold medal with me not there. So yeah, I really think I could have helped out there.
And Alistair, you were there. You and I spoke to each other on Talk Sport during our coverage during the games. You've made that transition of your own choosing from Olympic triathlon to what you're doing now. How tough is it to know and how to step off that platform?
It's a massive step. I mean, Jonny and me, as you know, we've done triathlon sport for our whole life since we were 8 years old, and we'd worked very hard towards those goals, and so the change is always going to be big. But for me, ultimately, it just felt absolutely the right time, and I don't think I've yet. I mean, talk to me in 6 months, it might change, but so far, I haven't regretted that decision at all.
And Ali, tell us some of the stuff that you've been doing since stepping away, because we're not going to say the word retirement.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. People have been asking me what I'm doing, and I'm like, I don't really know. I'm retired, but I feel busier than ever. So, to be fair, I've been enjoying plenty of holidays, getting the chance to do things I don't normally get the chance to do, like skiing, for example. That's been good. And a bunch of other things are keeping me busy at the moment. But really, over the next few months, yeah, I think in some ways it's very exciting because they've got a lot of great things that I can do, and but very overwhelming too. And I'm looking forward to trying finding a more kind of normal, routine and balance, and we'll see how that goes.
And Jonny, you mentioned about the disappointment of Paris. Do you look back now at the Olympics and go, "Oh, that slightly tarnished it," or actually, can you look back at your achievements?
That's a very good question. I think initially this summer, I think I was probably in a little bit of sulk mode about Olympics. I didn't actually watch too much of it. I watched the triathlon, and I was a bit like, I kind of don't really want to watch any of it. I kind of keep away from it all. Um, but now I definitely can look back and reflect on my Olympic career. Alistair announcing his retirement actually made me reflect quite a lot because I guess that's when you read all the replies and you get all the messages through and I see all the pictures, and that made me actually realize, oh wow, what a journey it has been. And I don't think I've done a very good job in that of our career of actually stepping back and looking at it all. But yeah, now I can look back at the Olympics and I look back at what an incredible sporting event it is, how much it's given me, the amazing times that I've had, and I wouldn't change that for the world, definitely not.
Well, I hope you do look back at it because you have every right to be supremely proud of what you achieved on the Olympic stage, Jonny. You too, Alistair, one of the things that you're doing now on the Athletes Commission with the International Olympic Committee, are you following this race to be the next president closely this week?
Of course, I wondered if you were going to ask me that. But of course, yeah, it's a very exciting week in the world of sports administration, isn't it? With the big vote coming in a few days.
And I presume, obviously, with your build up to 2012 in London, you will have come across and met Seb Coe on many and various occasions. Have you got a preferred candidate? Are you able to have a preferred candidate with your role? Do you support Seb?
Yeah, I've lucky enough to come across Seb a few times over the years, and yeah, if I had a vote, which I didn't, I think Seb would be my choice. Yeah, I mean the obvious example that he's led every element of the Olympic movement really in an IF, NOC, an organising committee, and organising the Olympic Games, which is obviously special to me, but was a fantastic Olympic Games. But I think more that, I think the Olympic movement is so much more than the sport. It really plays such a role in society. And I think through a whole load of kind of geopolitical problems, we face very uncertain times in terms of where the Olympic movement's going and the support and competition going forwards. And I think Seb's skills more than anything, as well as being an athlete, and didn't even mention that, but as well as being an athlete, his skills in that political sphere, I think, are going to be important.
And Ali, he's a double Olympic champion. You're a double Olympic champion. You could follow him down the IOC route, couldn't you?
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, time is on my side, as they say, in terms of that one.
You need a UK sport chair very soon, Alistair. I mean, throw your hat in the ring for that one, surely.
It's. I think it's just come and gone, actually. But maybe one day we'll see.
Final question to Ali. Your advice to Jonny, I'm sure you've talked about this anyway, but what should Jonny do in the next couple of years before hanging up the spikes?
Wow, in the next few years, I think enjoy it, but really you only enjoy high performance sport if you're doing it very well and you're doing it at 100%. So I really tried to focus on doing it to the best of my ability, even though I knew I couldn't train like I used to be able to. And I think you just know I just knew that the time was right, to be honest. I kind of thought for a while that I probably would retire at that point in time, and I just became more sure, and I knew that the time was right. I think if you don't have that, don't do it.
Well, always good to catch up with you both. I'm going to say something I once said on the radio. If Yorkshire was a country, you guys would be my president and prime minister. Ali and Jonny Brownlee backing the NatWest campaign for the Couch to Cash 5K challenge, urging young people to set their saving targets in 2025. Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. And good to speak to you again.
More on that chat in a moment. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, the latest on the big presidential election, coming up next.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast.
So really interesting to hear the views and opinions with Ali and Jonny there. And, well, I think Ali is very much pinning his colours to the Sebco mast for this Olympics, the Olympic presidential battle, John.
Yeah, very much so. And it's good to see Mo Farah, Tanni Gray-Thompson, Usain Bolt, all across the world have been coming out in support of Sebco. I think the briefing and counter-briefing has been taking place. But what I thought was really interesting from Ali's chat was that he's thinking about it. That he talked passionately about the Olympics, and we've seen that with Sebco and what Seb brings to the party. But you need the next generation, as he said. I've got a few years left in me. I don't necessarily have to follow him down that route yet, but I think it would be something that we've talked about Sir Andy Murray in the past. It would be great that Ali Brownlee, someone who went to 3 Olympic Games, a double Olympic champion, as I said to him, could be someone who can help change the focus of sport in this country, the way that we do it, the way we think about it, because we can't stand still. As the Olympics are proving this week, you've got to move forward. If not, you get replaced, you get usurped. So I think what I thought was really great from Ali's point of view is that he's taken a bit of a break, but he's thinking about what he wants to do next.
And it's interesting because we've got some of these kind of top jobs coming up or have been recently appointed. So we know that Catherine Granger, a former athlete herself, appointed as chair of UK Sport, so very much an athlete focus there at the very top of the organisation. We know that she is moving across to the British Olympic Association, who have had Seb Coe as a previous president. They've obviously had politicians as well as their previous president. But again, with the appointment of Catherine Granger, you imagine then the BOA will, as they should be very athlete focused. As you mentioned there, and I was kind of cheeky when I put it to Alistair, that leaves the vacancy at UK Sport. It will be interesting to see whether they go down the athlete route again, or whether they go down the administration route, a coach. Who knows? I mean, that is a decision.
Or a money point of view.
Or a money point of view. Yeah, they may go down the accountancy route. That may be, and we know that UK Sport have restructured significantly in recent times. So that may be the way that they have to go, because they've got this shrinking pot of National Lottery cash, and they maybe need to do and think about things just a little bit differently. So yeah, really interesting this week, of course, the 144th IOC session taking place in Greece. It's a hanger at the historic site of Olympia, which was the venue for the opening ceremony. So they've not gone down a river for this one. We had singing, though. We had dancing. We had speeches. No fireworks. I mean, always usually part of an opening ceremony, although not in Paris, was it? The outgoing president, Thomas Bach's voice actually broke at the end of his opening speech, as he realised that he won't be able to claim so much on expenses in the future. No, it broke as he declared, "With our hearts full of faith for the future, let us honour our roots and share an even brighter tomorrow for our beloved Olympic movement." And it's interesting as well that he is just stepping back. He's stepping down from the IOC after his presidency.
And I think it is quite an emotional time for him. We joke about it. He will become a lifetime president. He'll still be involved. Of course he will. But he actually, in today's session, so the opening session, he talked about how lonely it was as a leader 5 years ago when we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic, or about to start effectively in this country. Lockdown was about to come in. He talked about how lonely he felt and that he couldn't voice his fears, because everyone wanted to know whether the Olympics was going to happen and how it was going to happen. And even when they made that decision, he still couldn't voice his fears that it might not happen, because he said, ultimately, if I said something wrong, everyone would leap on it, and it would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So he really talked quite emotionally about it. And I think he is probably finding this week difficult. He's been there 13 years, and he has changed the face of the Olympics. And I think what the next incumbent has to do is kick on from here. There has been things that under Thomas Bach's reign that you would slightly criticise him for, maybe not being as open, maybe not speaking to the media as much or welcoming them in as much, maybe looking not. He always says he's athletes focused. He was a fencer himself, but could they do even more than they have already? And I think they're the key questions for the likes of Seb Coe, who we've mentioned, and Juan Antonio Samaranch. I thought it was interesting, Michael, that he, of course, is the vice president of the IOC. He's an executive board member, so he gets to be involved in the opening ceremony. He literally sat 2 seats away from Thomas Bach. And Kirsty Coventry's on that executive board, so she's involved as well. While Seb Coe is an IOC member and not seen quite as much on the stage or at these opening ceremonies. And it does feel a little weird that can happen, that you're standing to be the next president and you get to be involved quite so in the center of it.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of my reflections really on the interview there with Ali and Jonny. I think if there was a wider group of people that could vote for the IOC president, let's say they opened it up to people that have been in the Olympics, so Olympians, therefore athletes, then I think it would be a one-horse race. I think it would be Seb Coe all the way, because I think he does really appeal to athletes, certainly in what he's said and what he's done at World Athletics, puts the athletes first. But because it's such a limited number of people, and we said this, didn't we, on the last episode of the podcast, it's not necessarily the vote winner to appeal to the athletes. You are talking about the most political, non-political organisation there is probably on the planet. Princess Anne, Hugh Robertson are the IOC members from our country. They won't be able to vote, though, for Seb Coe. They are not allowed to vote until he exits, if you like. So they aren't able to vote for someone from their own country, their compatriot.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
It's going to be, and they reckon it's a 3-way battle: Coe, Coventry, and Samaranch. There are other 4 candidates, of course, as we know, but we will, of course, keep you bang up to date over the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, and if you still want more on the race to be president, read John's blog. It's excellent. It's on the website, anythingbutfooty.com. Good news, we can still talk Paris 2024.
Yes.
I mean, I'm all about reflecting. It's why we work so well together, because you're always looking ahead, but I reflect and look back a little bit more. And reflecting and looking back, Pierre-Olivier Becker-Vaugeon, the Olympics chair of the Coordination Commission, in his report at the IOC session said, on all counts, Paris was ambitious, innovative and courageous, and they kept pushing us all the time. He also said the imagery from these games will remain iconic, no doubt. And on the arrival of the Olympic flame in Marseille, which if you take your mind back to last May, it came in on a tall ship with a big flotilla of boats around it. It was absolutely spectacular. He declared that was certainly a blueprint for future organisers. And this is the point where John tells you he was at Land's End for the arrival of the torch in 2012. Didn't arrive with a flotilla of boats, did it?
No, but it came on a Boeing plane from BA with David Beckham, which at that time was probably the highlight of many people in Cornwall, and certainly me when it arrived. But I think what they were looking back on Paris, and they played the music, that not Gala, Free From Desire, but they played the official Paris music. And
Victor Lemazny's Parade.
Yeah, that would be the one. It's on the Spotify playlist, of course, for the Olympics from us. But it just brought everything back, and the pictures. He's absolutely right. The pictures will for always be there. There was one of Simone Biles lying down on the beam with Paris 2024. LeBron James screaming into one of his teammates' face after they'd beaten Serbia in the semi-final of the basketball. So I think when we look back on Paris, yes, they did everything. And I thought it was interesting. They said they really pushed the IOC to make it even better. But there was a lot of praise for Paris during the IOC session, but there were a lot of questions as well from members, which I thought was important as well to highlight about some of the issues. And we've talked about this really in the past kind of 9 months since the games ended, and we found out a bit more. I think Drew Barron talked to us, didn't he, Aquatics GB CEO, about some of the issues the swimmers felt in the first week. And we knew that the food in the athletes' village was not up to scratch. Team GB moaned about it at the time. So real question marks for organisers moving forward about about ensuring that there is enough food for the athletes who are competing. These are the stars of the show. It was quite ironic because those questions came in and then they broke for lunch. So I have a feeling there were no complaints over the lunch for the IOC meeting, but it was interesting that they made those points. And the other point as well, and talking about putting athletes first, they were talking about so-called satellite villages. So some of the sports that get sent out around the country and are not involved in the main area of where Paris was, which was obviously the capital city. So Marseille, Tahiti, even in the 4,000 miles away. And they said that they wanted really the organisers to look at ensuring that there was more of a games feeling in those locations. And I thought actually it was quite ironic, Michael, because that's maybe a warning for the organisers of the Commonwealth Games, that if you separate everything up and you don't have it generally in one place, does it feel like a multi-sport event?
Yeah, well, it will in 2026 because everything's going to be so close together. That's going to be the absolute beauty of Glasgow. And yeah, that will be, I think, really feel like a big games because you won't be able to move out that very small footprint of the games. I think with Paris 2024, I mean, if you don't take learnings from every event, then as an organisation, you are failing yourselves. You have to reflect. You have to take some learnings. It was brilliant. It was amazing. There was, as all Olympic Games produce, some wonderful moments. You talk about, the wonderful imagery. I, as you know, like to explore all my senses when I go to these major events. And for me, it was the sounds of Paris 2024, which I listen back to or recall. I love the smell of the big event, as you know. I've said that before. Whatever that is, I don't really know how to quantify it. It's just something that's special. But the serious point is you do have to report back and reflect, and that will have to be something that the organisers of LA in 2028 and Brisbane in 2032 will have to take on board. LA is going to be a much bigger footprint. And having been very fortunate enough to have been in Los Angeles on a couple of occasions, and obviously growing up in London and having spent a considerable amount of time in Paris, very different the way they did it. London had their park. That felt very Olympic, but you could be in bits of London and not know the games was taking place. Paris brought everything into the centre of the city. You couldn't move in the real city centre of Paris without knowing the Olympics was taking place. It was everywhere. Los Angeles is a sprawling metropolis. They're not going to have the park like London where you'll have that intense focus. How will they then create that Olympic vibe, that Olympic feel across that massive city that is LA? That's a challenge.
And they've got Donald Trump.
That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and they talk about the geopolitics, of course, and talk about how the Olympics brings everyone together, and it's all about peace. And Thomas Bach, I think one of the criticisms of Thomas Bach is that he talks about that so much and not really realizing what else is going on in the world. But we can also see what the Olympics is trying to stand for. But I think whoever is the next president has to work out, well, how am I going to deal with the new order, the way that Donald Trump runs the country effectively, because they are the organising committee and he will have a say, and there are certainly question marks about what kind of athletes will be allowed to come in, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a huge one. There was just one quote I wanted to finish with, which came from Etienne Thubois, who was the CEO of Paris 2024. To be fair to him, I didn't know that, so well done to him for helping put on an amazing games with Tony Estanguet, who was the president and the like. And now he was talking about sustainability, about Paris being the most sustainable games ever. And I think that's great. And absolutely, we all want that moving forward. But the quote he used was, "The Olympics are not immune to what is happening in the world." And I think that is the thing that I would say to the next IOC president. Don't be immune to what's happening outside of your Olympic organisation.
You can always find Anything But Footy on all the social media platforms if you want to follow us. Follow what is happening in the world of Olympic and Paralympic sports. You can check us out there. You can also read our thoughts, our opinions, watch and listen to what we do on our website, anythingbutfooty.com. And if you just want to have a bit of a sit back, relax, feet up, unwind, put the Spotify Olympics music playlist on and lose yourself in the sounds of the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. Do stay with us. We're Anything But Footy. Moving on to Milan and looking ahead to LA.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.